Hello and welcome to the performance-based project for Deanna Williston. For this project we had to choose a framework. I chose Understanding by Design, in which you identify desired results, determine the acceptable evidence, and finally work backwards to plan the learning experiences and instruction that will help produce the desired results. Stage 1. The desired results. I looked at my homeschool high school biology unit study of the taxonomy of kingdom Animalia and had to choose some goals, keeping in mind that my students work at home 4 days of the school week and only 1 day in class. So the goals were that they distinguish between animals and other creatures. We've been working our way through the kingdoms, so this should be natural. They should know the major phyla of kingdom Animalia, understand how structure is the basis for taxonomy, be familiar with the diversity of animals, and be able to list examples of classes of vertebrates, study their keywords, origins, and word parts. And we've been breaking words apart all year, so this vocabulary should be natural. They should understand that taxonomy is the classification of living things by their characteristics, specifically their structures. They should know that kingdom Animalia is different from the other kingdoms. Again, we've studied the other kingdoms, so this should be natural for them. We also need to look at the common misunderstandings, including classifying by appearance. What happens if you only look at the young of, say, a white-tailed deer? You would think all white-tailed deer are spotted. No, don't just look at appearance, look at structure. You should also look at common names like puma, mountain lion, cougar. They are all the same animal. Common names can be confusing. What about relative terms? Yikes, what's small to one person is not small to another. We need quantitative data. So students should know the major phyla of kingdom Animalia, again their keywords, origins, and word parts, and that kingdom Animalia is diverse. They should be able to distinguish between animals and other creatures, be able to list examples of the classes of vertebrates, and be able to identify the phylum of a given specimen with a justification. The essential questions we'll examine are how do form, function, and adaptation help us to classify creatures? Why is it important to use quantitative data when describing? We talked about that one. And who cares if we use different common names for the same animal? Students have been revising and rethinking this one all along. How does knowing about diversity and being able to describe the classifications and relationships between species impact my daily life? So we're going to get into some hardcore thinking here, students. What would be the acceptable evidence? We're going to have two kinds, a performance task in which students are going to develop their own slideshow based on 5 animals. They're going to look at their structures and characteristics using keywords from the book to describe them. They're going to use our quantitative data. They're going to make charts to name and classify the animals. There's going to be a tree diagram to show the relationships between the animals. And they're going to make a dichotomous key for the animals. We've been working on these different kinds of diagrams and keys all year long. And then they're going to look at those tools, those non-linguistic representations, and look for new relationships, and hopefully they can generate some hypotheses with that. We do that in our lab reports, and we need to start applying that to other areas, not just of science, but other subjects. What other evidence could there be? Well, we're going to have a formative quiz on the taxonomy of a crayfish. We've already dissected them, and we're going to use this example to know really well about those structures so that we can discuss these prompts a little bit more in depth using our crayfish as our basis example. We're going to then have a summative quiz at the end on the phyla of kingdom Animalia and the different classes of subphylum Vertebrata, which is important because we're in there. Stage 3. What about learning experiences and instruction? Ho! The teacher needs to be organized. That's the O in the Understanding by Design, where to. So we've got our 2 criteria. Where to? Where is the unit going? What's expected? Can we hook the students and hold their interest? Can we give them the equipment and experiences they need to explore this topic? Are they rethinking and revising? Can they self-evaluate? Is this learning tailored? Is it differentiated instruction? The research-based strategies, which we've been studying that are proven to help student performance, include setting objectives and providing feedback, reinforcing effort and providing recognition, cooperative learning, cues, questions, and advanced organizers, non-linguistic representations, summarizing and taking notes, assigning homework and providing practice, important in a homeschool environment, identifying similarities and differences, this is what biology is all about, and generating and testing hypotheses, crazy important in science. So to begin with, to hook the students and to give them some clues about it, we completed the overall review in the textbook. That was also fairly non-linguistic. It's a tree diagram we've been working on all year. Then we did some dissections. There were pre-labs, readings, and short essays. Then we dissected. There were lab reports, and then there was an overall essay. When we opened up the chicken wing, we actually moved some of the things to see how they worked. The grasshoppers, one of them was hollow. The frog had contents in his stomach. He had actual beetles and things in. So we were generating a lot of hypotheses, as well as looking at these structures that are very similar to structures we have inside us. My students also got to watch this PowerPoint before it was made into a video. That's a heck of an advanced organizer, isn't it? Lesson 1. We're using a purchased PowerPoint presentation. We're starting with part 1, although I normally don't, because of a student that came to us late in the year, so she missed the taxonomy unit. So we're going to go back and review that. This is also tailored. The red slides tell you how to take notes, and if students aren't as gifted in note-taking already, there's a packet that helps them. It already has things written out, like Venn diagrams and some of the simpler notes that they might have a hard time copying. We began by classifying ourselves by our location. We started with the universe and worked our way down to our street address. We're practicing broad to specific. There were some funny pictures of Carolus Linnaeus to hook us in. We explored the common names and hybrids, and that was just exciting. We were generating hypotheses, and we got lots of practice. It was a very exciting thing. Moving quizzes. You label the corners of your room A, B, C, and D. Multiple choice questions come up on the screen, and the students move to the appropriate corner. And as they see other students move, they are revising and rethinking their answers as well, and they move around the room. It's great exercise for kinetic learners as well. Then we had some questions about tree diagrams with clades. We've looked at tree diagrams. We haven't looked this specifically at them. They did this individually, and they were able to self-assess whether or not they really knew what was going on here. We then broke into cooperative learning groups to work on a dichotomous key. Again, my students have been working on this since almost day 1. We have a new student, so for the old students they're reviewing, the new student, she's just kind of learning this. It's definitely cooperative. It was some homework as well as providing practice, and they got to look at similarities and differences. When they went home, remember they have 4 days at home, so they read the book and looked at a figure. They did a crossword puzzle, which gives them the equipment they need to understand the chapter, as well as an advanced organizer cue kind of thing going on. They then looked at the tree diagram that we've already been working on. They extended it a little bit. They looked at their keyword. The one student who did this non-linguistically actually had the best score overall on this week's review. These research-based strategies work. We looked at a taxonomy chart. We've been making them all year. This time we're starting to use them to answer questions. We're moving further and deeper into our knowledge and applications. They finished their dichotomous key. It was tailored because one student got to use what he wrote in their whiteboard, and other students had to go home and type it up. And here we are for lesson 2. Continue with the PowerPoints, practice note-taking skills. We've changed from tree diagrams to bubblegrams. Some students just like bubblegrams, that little circle, better. Now we're making a matrix. We have a non-linguistic representation of a mnemonic device as well. Did King Philip come over for good spaghetti? Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, which ties straight into Carolus Linnaeus and binomial nomenclature. We then did a fun graphic where we eliminated the species off the screen literally until we worked our way down to the tiny little common squirrel. So it was a lot of fun. Students really got to look for similarities and differences there. A mystery picture is slowly revealed. Students know it's an important concept and they should know it. So they're trying to identify it. They're able to self-evaluate whether they really know the core concepts of this class. And then we do a regular, normal old review. Again, they can self-evaluate. This is all formative. And then they picked 5 animals for their project. Some of them thought they could trick their classmates by a hard animal and give themselves an easy animal, but we randomly picked them. Didn't work out the way the students thought, but they're really into that project now. So they went home, they're reading from sponges to marine worms. They're looking at their keywords and going a little bit more deep into them than we normally do. It's not just a definition. They're also going to label the external anatomy of a crayfish. Remember, we have the formative assessment coming up on a crayfish. We need to know this one well. And then they're going to work on their slideshow project, and they're going to review copyright videos so they know what to do when they use pictures from the internet. In lesson 3, We're going to check in with our projects. We're going to have a rubric you'll see later. So we're going to peer assess and evaluate ourselves. We're going to get some feedback. We know our objectives and everything now because we have that rubric in our hands. We're also going to learn topic restriction illustration frames, a new way of summarizing. We're going to do a lot of the same things. We're going to review that matrix. We're going to move on to the characteristics of Animalia, including asexual reproduction. There's a funny non-linguistic representation involving superheroes there. We're going to look at our animals bilateral. Look, you can divide him in half. He's bilateral. So we're now looking at structures a little more deeply, not just what is the structure, how is it formed. A tree diagram for the phyla Animalia. And then we're going to put taxonomy into practice by classifying animals, some more practice, identifying similarities and differences. We're going to have that crayfish quiz. Okay, so now we're going to read to the end of the chapter, finish filling in about the phyla of kingdom Animalia, similar format from before. And then we're going to use a diagram and write a little paragraph about complete metamorphosis. So we're practicing our concepts and working on non-linguistic representations. We should be taking notes. They're going to complete their project where that's, of course, it's homework, it's non-linguistic, and they're identifying similarities and differences. Lesson 4. A lot of the similar things to what we've been doing, a lot of reviews. We're working our way down now into practicing classifying chordata, and we're going to look at adaptations, not just structures, but what do those mean? Birds have a beak. Why are the beaks different shapes? What could be that? So we're going to start generating some hypotheses, another mystery picture review, and then this amazing slideshow down here of the diversity of animals. Students from previous classes have already asked if they can come back and watch this. This is the hook. My students have been hearing about this all year from older brothers and sisters. They cannot wait to do this. So at home, we're going to be reviewing. Maybe we're going to use those new summary techniques. We're going to match the file to the statement. So now we're going to work backwards. We're going to have statements and figure out what our keywords are. They're going to finish their slideshow project. They should be generating some hypotheses here as a review, and we're tailoring that project that students may pre-record it if they have a special need. Week 5 is our assessment week, and we're going to present our slideshows to our friends as well as take the summative quiz. It does mention the owl hiding in one box. There's been a very tiny owl in our slideshows getting us to look at details all along, and now you're rewarded by it's a bonus point if you can happen to find that. We have the rubric here that we developed for the dissection, so you can see they had to be prepared, they had to worry about safety, they had to worry about teamwork. Dissection skills involved being organized. These are a lot of the same strategies worked into every assignment for the rubric. If you look, they need to be organized, which was in our where to. They need practice. They need advanced organizers. These things can be worked into almost any lesson. And here's the rubric what my students will actually be using for their slideshow. You can see I did not do successfully on the keep it simple, but my students are home 4 days a week. They have a lot of work to do. Required elements: do we have the content? Is accurate, organized, interesting, concise? Does the audience enjoy it? Have we met all copyright laws? Have we watched our editing? And I'd like to thank my resources and reference here. Please note that Science by Murph is allowed to be used for educational purposes, but not to the general public. So please keep this presentation private. Thank you. And I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, learned a little bit about understanding by design and how to incorporate some research-based strategies into your classroom to help your students succeed. Thanks again.